Let's talk about Nosferatu. But first, let's give it a rating. For me, this movie is a 9 out of 10. I love it. It's by far one of my favorite horror films in the last few years, and you have to watch it. Even if you don't like horror. Although if you don't like horror, you may have a hard time. Now, 3 reasons to watch the film. 1. The photography will simply blow your mind. From the aesthetics, to the use of light and darkness, to the blue palette of colors, is visually outstanding. This film probably should be studied in schools of cinematography in the future, and on the top of that, it contains some absolutely nerve-wracking scenes, like for instance, that one, that will stay in your mind for a long while.
Come to me.
I cannot encourage you enough to watch this film in the movie theater. 2. How damn scary the movie is. There were people just leaving the cinema 20 minutes into the film. It is oppressive and seriously intense. You know when you are in the movie theater and people are just whispering, talking with each other, looking at the phone? Well, absolutely nothing about that. People were under the spell. It was complete silence the whole movie. I discovered myself grabbing the armrest sometimes like that. Whether you like horror or not, this movie is an experience to be embraced. 3. The actors, William Dafoe and Bill Skarsgård. The first never fails, and is already a usual in other Robert Eggers films, like The Northman or The Lighthouse, and if you haven't watched them, just go now and watch them. The role that he plays and the craziness of the character, Doctor from France, suits him perfectly.
Everybody wants to kill Bill. Kill Bill 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
The later, Bill Skarsgård, is becoming probably the best horror actor in the last few years, if not decades. I went to the movie theater without doing much research, and I didn't know who was playing the character of Count Orlok, the vampire. And what was my surprise when I discovered that the same actor that was playing Pennywise in the 2017 adaptation of It was the same actor that was playing Count Orlok.
Can you smell the circus, Georgie? There's peanuts, cotton candy, hot dogs, and...
Popcorn?
popcorn! Is that your favorite?
Uh-huh.
Mine too! Because they pop. Pop, 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 pop. Pop, pop, pop.
He is scary as hell. Now, in simple words, what is the film about? This is a mix between the original Bram Stoker's Dracula and 1922 Nosferatu, but darker and sinister. In case you don't know about the original story, if you have to summarize it in a nutshell, it's about this. A very powerful vampire creates a bond with a young woman and leaves in all type of horror and suffering for her and the people she loves, including her pretty much useless husband. Now, interesting facts about Nosferatu. Already mentioned how Skarsgård steals the show, but what I didn't mention is the amount of work and dedication involved in the creation of the character. In order to perform Count Orlok, Skarsgård had to spend 6 hours a day in the makeup chair. Makeup, which by the way involves a whopping amount of 62 pieces of prosthetic.
I've done these sort of transformative performances before, but none quite like this.
David is an incredible designer. When I first saw the prosthetics and what it looked like, just a sculpture on it, the character was alive. It's so scary. It's so unsettling. Most of my time is hanging out with the prosthetics people.
But it's not only about the makeup. Skarsgård spent 6 weeks before filming just recording himself in order to perfect Orlok's creepy voice.
I shall taste of you.
He even trained with an opera coach in order to lower his voice 1 octave. Skarsgård describes his voice exercise as Mongolian throat singing. That's something that you don't hear every day. Skarsgård's preparation of the role was apparently so intense that he claims he will never play something that evil again.
It's the scariest performance of my career. I've never been more scared in playing a character. I've done these sort of performances before, but none quite like this. I felt like I could become this vessel of evil, playing Orlok. He's the pinnacle of horror characters.
But Skarsgård was not the only one taking very seriously his role. Lily Rose Depp's performance is notable for its haunting physicality. She was working with a movement coach in order to choreograph the contortions of movements that reflect Ellen's struggle. If you've watched the film, you know what I'm talking about.
Particularly with like kind of the possessed scenes.
She had to do this extensive body work and Butoh choreography with Marie Gabrielle.
Depp drew inspiration from a Japanese dance called Butoh, also known as the Dance of Darkness, in order to portray Ellen's descent into the abyss. Robert Eggers, the director, also mentions 1968's film Kuroneko as an influence for these unsettling movements.
Going into this hysterical, shaking, convulsing fit. Lily did a lot of work pushing that forward and really finding it in her own body. And she had to make a really strong, like, grotesque demon face to the camera, and she really went for it. She drooled, her tongue went out, her eyes were rolling, you know, she was making the most hideous faces, and I'm really proud of the work that she's done to reach that level. Lenny!
Now, a fun one. Believe it or not, Robert Eggers specifically thanked Spongebob featurings of Nosferatu for sparkling interest in the character among younger generations. So, who lives in a pineapple under the sea and loves vampire movies? Spongebob Nosferatu.
If that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights? Nosferatu!
When we talk about vampires, we need to talk about Transylvania. The exterior shots of eerie castle were actually recorded in Hunedoara Castle, Transylvania, Romania, where once Vlad the Impaler, in which Dracula's character is actually based, was once imprisoned. Meanwhile, the interior shots of the castle were filmed at Pernštejn Castle in Czech Republic, the same location used in Werner Herzog's 1979's version of Nosferatu. And you may be wondering, why Count Orlok and Count Dracula are so similar? Well, there is a legal battle behind the scenes. The original film of Nosferatu was in copyright violation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, who didn't give permission to record the movie. Bram Stoker's wife sued the production, and most of the recordings were destroyed because of the legal suit. However, some leaked copies made their way to other countries or escaped. So when you look at Count Orlok, you are actually looking at Count Dracula. Thomas Hatter is Jonathan Harker. Ellen is Mina Harker. Professor from France is actually Professor Van Helsing. And so on and so forth. So basically, Nosferatu is Dracula in disguise. Another interesting detail is the minimal use of CGI in this film. Robert Eggers went all old school. For instance, the snow scene, what you are looking at is actually crushed frozen potato flakes, same technique that was used in the movies in the 40s. And also talking about the lack of CGI, the cast was slightly surprised when they discovered that Eggers was using 5,000 real rats in order to record the film. And Skarsgård was even more impressed when he got to know that in the coffin that he uses, there were real maggots in it. Talking about commitment.
We had thousands of rats, however many there were, and 200 of them were trained to enter on cue. Rats are really intelligent. I have a lot of respect for them, but they're constantly like pissing and just like constantly. So when you have thousands of them, between 2 and 10,000, it's quite smelly. Fair. And if you're Emma Corrin and you have live rats on you for 14 takes of rat urine in your clavicle pooling. Yeah, it's cool.
Finally, the photography. The film used some very cool techniques in order to achieve that eerie sort of black and white night scenes. They used a special filter called short-term pass in order to remove most of the color. And some of the scenes were recorded actually during daylight. And then they remove the yellow and the red out of the spectrum. That gives that old school vibe, and it was how most of the films in the 20s, the silent films, were.
We got to do different lighting effects with sunrises and sunsets. How bright should the sun be? How blue should the skylight be?
It's really beautiful. It's a really cool shot.
Am I far enough out in the window? Yeah, right?
In summary, this is not a film just about vampires and jump scares. It's a film about isolation, desires, and the darkness that lurks within ourselves and in the world around us. Here, Eggers uses the classical Nosferatu tale in order to explore much deeper topics, like mental health, societal control, or the darkness and evil of capitalism. And that's a wrap on Nosferatu. I hope you have now some interesting facts that make you interested in watching the film if you haven't done so. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please like it, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss in future reviews, and click in the bell button so you get notified whenever I'm uploading something. And also, don't forget leaving a comment whenever you've watched the film with your own opinion. And with that, until the next film, happy watching!